jelly. First of all, I give the floor of Manlio di Stefano. Good morning, Ms. Undersecretary. How are you? First of all, everybody knows the last figures of the pandemic, COVID crisis, which is very terrible, very bad, and so this request a new response for the government, not only of the Italian government, but for the all the government, all the public authorities. What is your feeling today, Mr. De Stefano?
Hello, good morning, everybody. Thank you for the introduction. It's a real honor and a pleasure for me to be here today with you to talk about an issue and a topic that is what I'm working on since years now. So the export and internationalization, and in this moment, obviously related to the event, the post-COVID crisis. And to draw your attention also to this really strange times we are going through. I would like to thank the organizers and also the very high-level audience and guests that are present today. Well, with the COVID-19 crisis, we really rediscovered to what extent today's world is interconnected. This is especially true with regard to our economic ties in what we can consider as a full interdependence. No country could make it alone in this globalized world, and we really have seen how much it is real in these last months. From the beginning of this pandemic, we have been the first to stress the importance of keeping trade flows between countries open, because everybody could see how the sanitary crisis will result in a terrible economic crisis. And we believe this crisis can only be mitigated by keeping international trade active and at the same time by stimulating the economy through public investments and direct support to the entrepreneurs. Italy, as you know, is primarily an exporting country. From 2010 to 2019, the Italian exports increased by 41%, reaching in 2019 a total amount of 475 billion euros, which makes up around 1/3 of the Italian GDP. The positive trend of Italian foreign trade is also witnessed by a trade surplus. As a matter of fact, since 2012, Italy has always registered a trade surplus that peaked in 2019, reaching almost 53 billion euros. That is the second in Europe after Germany. We expected to reach 500 billion euros of export in 2020, but as you can well imagine, the pandemic represented also in this regard a typical example of black swan, an unforeseeable catastrophic event. Against the COVID-19, we could only try to react by keeping our economy safe and trying to recover, also with the help of the European Union and the extraordinary effort put in place by our government. In fact, despite the positive data mentioned and an increase in our export in the first 2 months of the current year, the COVID-19 crisis has severely hit our trade. Italian imports and export has decreased sharply. In particular, in the first 7 months of 2020, export decreased by 14% and import decreased by 17% compared to the same period of 2019. But as I said, the pandemic triggered a prompt reaction from our side. The Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation defined an innovative strategy to relaunch our export in the aftermath of the pandemic, the so-called Export Pact, Patto per l'Export. Minister Di Maio launched this proactive strategy last June at the presence of several ministers, public authorities, and the main Italian business association. Consider that the Export Pact relies on 6 main pillars, communication, promotion, information and training, trade fairs, e-commerce, and export trade finance. Each pillar has several digital features. Let me stress that to set this strategy, we used a very inclusive approach, which we pursued through a wide online consultation process, which involved 147 Italian business associations and more than 250 participants. This wide consultation was conducive to a better understanding the needs of the business world in this critical phase and allowed us to shape our strategy for the future. First, Italian Business Association underlined the importance of developing a digital communication campaign able to convey a new image of our country with a specific focus on promoting tourism. Currently, we are defining the content of the campaign after all the European tender and everything that was made already during the summer period. Second, the private sector encouraged us to continue with our promotion initiatives that we call integrated promotion, promozione integrata, organized by our diplomatic and consular network and by the Italian trade agency offices abroad. Through these initiatives, developed also online, so to comply with social distancing measures, we aim at promoting Italian excellence in several domains, from arts and culture to science and innovation, from cinema to design, with a special priority given to the productive sectors that were more severely hit by the recent pandemic. These initiatives may represent a unique opportunity for our professionals and to showcase their work all over the world. Moreover, let me stress that we are well aware of the complexity of the current global trade scenario and its ceaseless evolution. That is the reason why the ministry is willing to act promptly to help companies improving their competencies and skills, so to be better equipped to face the challenges of our time and grasp the many opportunities globalized markets offer. To this end, we are working to make the expertise of several thousand of digital export managers available for our entrepreneurs. At the same time, we have launched an ebook to present all the instruments that we have created to the business community. And more important, we have launched the 18th of September, the new website export.gov.it that is a real public toolkit for exporting. I'm confident that this website can help our companies to take the leap into foreign markets through a step-by-step approach, and it will be also a stand as a digital platform for B2B meetings and all the new needs that we have after pandemic. We have in this domain, we have also agreed new agreements with the major e-commerce platforms such as Alibaba, Amazon, JDI.com, and so on, that will help Made in Italy to be sold online in the future. And another pillar, obviously, is the trade fairs that are really dramatically eaten by the crisis. And we have first decided to give an help to the companies that have lost their own money in the springtime, being unable to participate to the fairs. But then we restarted implementing new instruments like the Fiera Smart 365, that is a platform for the B2B activities on digital beside the physical event. Another very important, probably the most important pillar of the Patto per l'Export is the trade finance. I'm proud of all the work that we have done with SIMEST. I know that Pasquale Salzano will be part of the conference, so he will explain better than me what's going on, but I can give you just few data. We have simplified and expand the fund that SIMEST manage for companies that want to internationalize their own activities. And the result is that we have now a fund of 1,262 euros that is available with a mix of non-repayable loans. And the numbers speaks more than me, saying that in the first 7 months of 2020, we have achieved the result of 864 million euros, when in the whole 2019 we achieved just 239 million euros of loans. It means a lot. It means that we've been able to contact directly the small enterprises, numbers that are even more important if you look at the breakdown. Consider that 98% of this money went to small and medium enterprises. 82% of them are new enterprises joining the instruments that SIMEST put in place. So to say that we are really looking now at granting this fund even also for 2021, and we are already working to the new budgetary law to achieve this result. And we are really looking at simplifying the procedures even more after we included the European countries, and we avoided the need of the guarantee to access the instrument. We strongly believe that through the digital developing of the enterprises, we can achieve even the digitalization of the enterprises, we can achieve even best results. And that's why we are focusing a lot on that, also through the work of other ministries. And we perfectly know how much this time is difficult and how much we have to work together, as we did in the last times, to overcome the situation. As I said in a recent event, we expect a new Italian Renaissance based on innovation and digitalization, and that's the way we are working on in these specific times. We already started charting our way, and we will continue to do so in the next future, also thanks to the new resources provided by the Next Generation EU, the so-called recovery plan. So let us hope that the current sanitary crisis ends soon, and I'm sure that our export will contribute substantially to our recovery. Thank you so much, and really thanks for giving such a spotlight on such an important issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Di Stefano. And now I give the floor to Pasquale Salzano, which is of SIMEST. Salzano, right now the Undersecretary Di Stefano mentioned the importance of the export pact. SIMEST is in, let's say, in the front row of this task. What are the new figures, the new achievements of this task?
Thank you, Gerardo, and thank you to the Undersecretary Manlio Di Stefano. He has already given very important figures regarding SIMEST, but I would like also to give first a broader picture and then to underline what you, Gerardo, has already mentioned. I would also like to thank the organizers, as it is always a privileged opportunity for a frank discussion between representatives from national institutions, diplomacy, and university, civil society, and private sector. The COVID-19 pandemic has changed and continues to change international trade, both from a quantitative and a qualitative perspective. We are now aware that global trade flows will contract by at least 10%, and Italy's export will drop by 15%. From a qualitative perspective, the suddenness and depth of the crisis generated by the pandemic is clearly producing new and unexpected trends, as well as dramatic speeding up some of these already present. Above all, existing global value chains are being called into question, following their partial interruption witnessed in recent months. For a country like Italy, so embedded in global trade, being the 9th exporter worldwide and generating over a third of its gross domestic product from exports, the shortening of value chains to a more regional dimension will be an issue to grapple with and address by looking to markets closer to home. Contextually, the high-quality production Italy is well known for around the world will continue and need to continue to have a global market. Therefore, we have to keep feeding and promoting the demand for made in Italy excellence well beyond Europe. We must not shun away from more distant markets, but continue to export and invest towards them, as they will still be economically attractive for Italian companies. How can we achieve this target? Undoubtedly, innovation and digitalization are the linchpin for success, as rightly said just a few minutes ago by Undersecretary Manlio. Digital channels, which are becoming increasingly more pervasive in international trade and essential in this moment of movement restrictions, require the business community to bridge its digitalization gap. To do so, Italian companies can count on SIMEST. Through subsidized loans, we can support the service of a digital export manager, for example, a competent navigator of the digital sphere, or the placing of companies on e-commerce platforms, even more essential to access consumers in both advanced and emerging economies. Likewise, in a moment in which the ability to plan international business venture is hindered by a pandemic that will influence and design international trade futures, access to key information and professional training are fundamentals to succeed in global markets. For this purpose, SIMEST offers Italian companies a number of tailor-made tools. I refer to the ability to finance, for instance, a temporary export manager, fundamental figure who can veer companies in their search for valuable markets. Or, for example, a feasibility study, similarly used to evaluate production and commercialization investments abroad. Or, again, to fund up to 100% for the participation to international trade fairs and business missions, an important first test run for market opportunities, or staff trainings for foreign investment initiatives. There is no doubt that our way of conducting business, especially towards foreign markets, require an important adaptation and rethinking. Yet, there is a reason to be positive. Thinking back, one must not forget that during the early days of globalization of China's advance in the multilateral trade system, some economists were pessimistic on the future of Made in Italy and about SMEs that make up its backbone. Today, we can proudly say that Italian companies have proven their worth as a result of strong flexibility and the ability to adapt and geographically diversify decision markets. So much so that in recent years, our export have been gradually growing, recording even better performances than those of some European peers. If the pandemic had not interrupted this virtuous trend, this year's Italian export would have totaled about 500 billion euros. It is now important not to lose these results. We must look at the challenges currently facing us as an opportunity for our business community and for the country as a whole to make that leap in the future. By doing so, we will be able to build an economy more resilient to further inevitable external shocks and increasingly interconnected economy entails. Another important step to bring a much more effective support to Italy's business community has been the so-called Patto per l'export, the Italian government's new strategy that places the support for export and internationalization at the center of Italy's economic recovery plan. SIMEST is given a primary role, as said already by Undersecretary Manlio di Stefano. This shows that in difficult times, the subsidized financial tools offered by SIMEST represent a fundamental support to Italian companies. It also highlights Italian companies' courage and determination to react and to restart by investing in their own future, and how well Italian institutions and businesses can work well together to reach a common goal. The explosion of requests, which has already exceeded the huge resources available from the 3994 fund, has brought us to declare a temporary stop to new financing requests. We are then furthering the cause for new resources so greatly required by entrepreneurs. Italian businesses will certainly be protagonists of a new season of growth and economic development based on competency, productive excellency, creative capacity, and constant research of innovative solutions. In this effort to deliver the change our society needs, vigorous Italian entrepreneurial forces will continue to find Italy's institutions as their side, starting from CDP and SIMEST. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Salzano. Thank you for your contribution. And now for the system of the Commerce Chamber, Mr. Tripodi is unable, is impossible. He can't participate, and so Alessandro Gelli for Promos is with us. Alessandro Gelli, you are with us now. Can you hear? Can you hear?
Yes. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Gelli.
Do you hear me?
Yes. I hear you. Listen, the pandemic crisis create a new develop of the e-commerce system. So what are the last figure of the e-commerce in Italy?
Sure. The e-commerce has been this year even more than in the recent past a key factor in the capacity of the companies to be efficient in the trade, especially for what concern the export. Already before the pandemic, we have invested as Promos Italia and also as a system quite intensively in the digital field, and this gave us the possibility to be effectively responding to the needs of our enterprises in this period when the possibility to meet physically was almost not existing anymore. And in this sense, just to give some example, we have been already since the lockdown period organized with our SMEs over 15,000 meetings, B2B, involving over 5,000 national and foreigner companies. Then the possibility to work effectively with with this, which I mentioned, happened with a very good feedback from the companies, which were initially a bit disoriented concerning this new form of dealing with the counterparts. But it's evident the positive result. Obviously, there is less intensity of the result per unit of meeting, but this system gives the possibility of implementing a significant higher number of meetings. And if the platform on which the B2B is which supports this B2B activity is well organized, the matching percentage is very high. Then we can say that this is for sure something which will bring with us after this crisis will end, and we hope it will happen as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Gelli. And now should be with us Mr. Müchler, Stefan Müchler, which is the deputy chairman of Eurochambres. Can you hear me, Mr. Müchler?
Absolutely. I hope you can hear me.
Good morning, Mr. Müchler.
Good morning.
And first of all, I would like to know, are you real confident to the possibility that next generation EU funds will respond to the real needs of the economic European system, and in which field they cover the needs and the needs of also for the sanitarian needs on the other fields.
Thank you very much, and first of all, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak on this very interesting and important conference and seminar. Let me start with giving you some reflections on this overall theme that we are talking about today, export and internationalization post-COVID. And I'll turn back to your question. I think we are living in an extremely important and interesting time. It's very threatening, of course, what we've seen with this coronavirus. And we could always see we have always seen traces of some quite negative reactions from around all over the world with nationalism, with protectionism, with closed borders, etc. Of course, politicians have to react on what's going on and show some sort of strength when they, so that their voters think that they actually do what they can. Basically, I don't know anyone knows what the outcome of this pandemic will be when it comes to the medical situation until in 2 or 3 years. I think it's to be remembered. What we've seen in Europe over the last decades is, of course, a tremendous development. After the fall of the Berlin Wall, we saw development in Eastern European countries, and before that in our part, the Western parts. And it has been built, and this is a very important thing to remember. It has been built on openness and open trade flows, on open markets, and because this has created a Europe as we see it today. And I think that we should be very aware of what's going on now, so that we don't fall back to a situation before we have this open free trade attitude in Europe. And one can think, oh well, we take it for granted, and we know that this is of course the way we should deal with. But we've seen a lot of or at least too many politicians and people advocating a more closed economy and more national economy. I don't think that's the solution. Even if, of course, we have very big respect for the virus as such. When it started, we saw, I think the European Union actually, after a while, really recovered from a very, very bad start in reacting to this COVID pandemic. But now it's getting more and more, should I say, integrated and more synchronized in the policy measures. And I think we should never forget, once again, that open trade, open market has actually created this welfare. When we talk about funds that have been set up, it's very tough. I think to tell where it's good or bad. I think it's one should, as a general approach, you should have funds financing structural changes and help for structural changes. Of course, in a crisis, you can, for a short while, invest money in helping companies, helping industries to overcome the crisis. But this shouldn't be the new normal. The normal should be that you have very sound businesses and industries. They can be helped by using funds and to overcome crisis, but they should not get used to to these funds. And when politicians use funds, this money should be invested in structural changes. I think this is, of course, a very, very general answer, but I think it's extremely important to remember that what actually created welfare in Europe over the last decade has actually been structural changes, investment in infrastructure, and investment in changes that actually creates a better competitiveness. Because as someone said, very wise, no country can make it alone. And I think we in Europe should, and we need to make it together, because we are not talking about our neighbors to compete with our neighbors in other European countries in the first line, but we need to get Europe as a whole really competitive. And that's where we actually should be united within the European Union framework. There could be a lot of progress made, and what was being done within the European Union and the European Commission is, of course, could always be questioned, but I can't see any alternative. The only alternative is to stick together and to develop that kind of cooperation further. It's a very huge issue to deal with, but this was my first reflections on this very interesting theme. Thank you. I think you're mute. Yes, you're still muted, I guess.
Thank you very much for your contribution. And last but not least, Roberta Datteri, Vice President for Internationalization of CNA-National Confederation Craft and Small and Medium-Sized Enterprise. Can you hear us, Roberta?
Yes, I can. Good morning.
Good morning. And which is the challenge for the small and medium-sized enterprise, and in particular on the craft sector? And Italy is the one of the country in Europe which is very hard for the pandemic crisis. This has an impact on a particular on the medium and small enterprise. So, which are the response that you need, and in terms of negotiation with the public authorities?
Okay, thanks a lot for this question. Let me first say thank you to the organizers for the invitation to participate at this panel. Really, I'm here as an entrepreneur who over 20 years is exporting more than 90% of our annual turnover all around the world. But above all, the role of National Vice President of CNA with the responsibility for the internationalization allows me to represent today the contribution of the experiences and the points of view of a large number of companies. Referring to the topic of this debate, I'd like to specify that the business community is not able to imagine now the post-pandemic scenery, and I believe no one is yet. So today, what I can talk about is the reaction capacity that micro and small companies have had during the pandemic till now. Without a doubt, we are involved in an unprecedented global health crisis, at least for what concerning our generation. In this framework, trade is essential to save life's welfare, culture, relationships, and international trade is also it's also important for the same aim. We must remember that 2020 started very well for export, which is why after the lockdown till now, many companies have worked on export. But the stop of international relations, I mean exhibitions, events, business trips, and so on, create a shock on demand. So now we are worried about the next future. The actions taken by the Italian government, as we heard before from the words of Undersecretary Di Stefano, summarized with the Patto for Export, these actions support export to relaunch the country system and made in Italy. And these have had an exceptional impact. This is due to the immediate use of tools and resources, as well as the strategies. For example, in the Patto for Export, as we heard from the words of President Salzano, I'd like to mention the instrument of revolving fund 394, managed by SIMEST. This is very important for the micro, small, and medium enterprises. Without entering into technical details, we must point out that over 12,000 requests have been received for an amount of 3.9 billion euros for projects in support of export. This is an excellent result, not only for the Italian institutions, but also for the Italian business community. Micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises have proved that they have resilience capabilities and that they are strongly oriented to expand into international markets. Most of them are micro and small companies accepting and receiving for the first time support for their development and growth. Now, as we know, SIMEST suspended temporarily the receipt of new applications, but we are confident that our relevant ministries will do their best to start over with a new section of this tool. The European Union also has activated important strategies and resources to support the economy with exceptional measures. But this is not enough. All the extraordinary efforts are not enough. I'd like to bring two important matters in this debate today. The first one starts from the fact that the situation will be difficult for a long time to come. And we will have to imagine a business going along with the pandemic. For this reason, the support of an effective, connected economic diplomacy is very important. Not only for the biggest companies, but more than ever for the small and medium-sized enterprises. In every country, the restart requires the strong support of diplomacy, which will have to find formulas and strategies that give a concrete contribution to the restart as a strategic support for public and private investments. Of course, we all agree that digital will be an important and essential dimension for everyone. But we have also verified that we cannot, and actually we don't want, to give up the physicality of commercial events, especially regarding made in Italy products. So the appeal we would like to address today to international diplomacy is to recreate the conditions for a resumption of international trade relations, even in physical form, in respect of mutual health security. I know this request doesn't sound good in these days when contagion is growing fast, but all of us, we are called to plan the economic future. Companies have proved that it can be safely done. And with the reopening of production activities, we have shown that it's possible to work in compliance with maximum safety. We need now to demonstrate that commercial relations that are also human and cultural ones can be resumed under the same safety conditions. The second topic we want to bring to your attention today regarding the export and in a pandemic area is that we have finally understood that the new economic models should be closely linked to economic, social, and environmental sustainability. In order to turn these words into reality, everyone must engage personally, companies, citizens, institutions. And it will be very important to globalize the concept of sustainability so that the impact on trade and economic relations can have a modest weight. Will also be important to give to sustainability the right economic value. So that could be clear to everyone that in the face of a potential higher direct cost, there is a high return in collective terms. And on these two, the role of coordination, cooperation, and education of diplomacy will be fundamental for the resumption of international trade. So referring to your question, Mr. Pelosi, what I would like to underline is that we received the right instruments, the right support from our government. Maybe it's, okay. Maybe it's not sufficient, but we are in the right way. What we have to underline is that the resumption of international trade will be not only coming from the big companies. Of course, we need the big companies to restart, but what is typical from Italian economy is that a lot more than 30% of export company come from micro and small enterprises. So we are a reality in the export. Even if we are not very famous brand, even if we are not big companies, but we have an important weight and an important position in the export, Italian export. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Roberta, for your very clear vision of the problems and to the answer we are facing. And I guess we have a short space also for Q&A and also for the participants of this webinar, maybe have some question to our panelists. I don't know if there are some questions, and maybe Mr. Gelli is not with us, but the other panelists, and also the Stephan, but the other panelists are with us. So if there are some questions, Giovanni D'Agostino, please.
Good morning, and thank you for being here. My name is Giovanni D'Agostino. I'm a global governance student from the second year, and I'm really honored to be here. My question is with regards to carbon footprint. So there is no doubt that Italy is investing and supporting export of made in Italy products and services. However, I felt that there wasn't a mention of the plan of Italy and the Italian private sector to reduce the carbon footprints caused by exports. So, for example, even Apple has recently taken some steps towards the goal of reducing carbon footprints. So I was wondering what the panelists thought with regards to this. And thank you again.
I don't know if Mr. Salzano or Mr. Datteri.
Yes, thank you for the question. Actually, it's a very important issue. Generally speaking, sustainability is an extremely important element of our policy, also in SIMEST and also in the CDP group. So in all especially in all the equity investments SIMEST is undertaking, sustainability is one of the key factors. So I would like to tell the person that just made the question that indeed, yes, that issue is well taken into high consideration.
The second question is from Mulik Arman. Mulik,
good morning. Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah. Thank you very much to all the panelists for such a thought-provoking conversation. My question, my name is Arman and I'm also a student of global governance, I apologize. My question is about, because you've mentioned a lot of the local micro enterprises, and I've noticed that, especially obviously during the pandemic, a lot of the countries, to put it on a global level, a lot of the countries were kind of dependent on these local, produce and the local crops and these things because of the difficulties in the international trade. Now, again, now with the whole uncertainty and with the new decrees and new measurements being put in place, how can the government and the policymakers find the balance between protecting the community with these new measures put in place, new lockdowns, possibly new things, and also provide the right policies to guide international trade, on a global level? I hope I was clear.
Yes. Maybe Stefan, can you hear us, Stefan Müchler?
Yes, thank you. I think this is an extremely important question, and it's of course very complicated and it's tough to deal with. In my reflections, I actually indirectly was going in this direction, because I think what we can see after the pandemic is of course that we will have re-established value change, and we will be more dependent on local regional suppliers, and we will not even tolerate single source suppliers. So I think this is very, very important, and that's why I think when you use different funds or investments with public money, you should be very careful where it should be invested, and it should be invested in ways that we can convert our system so we can have these structural changes. And I think it makes it even more important that we stick together in Europe and we create the same levels of fairness and openness, because we know for sure that what's going on between China, US, etc., is a trade war. And we are very dependent on these markets, but in a fair way. And we really, if we can stick together and set up these regulations, and really actually demand from countries exporting to Europe that they really keep at least to some extent the same level of fairness or low carbon footprints, etc. This is a very tough thing to do, because you will always have industries that are put under pressure and they are screaming loud because it's about a lot of works are threatened. But so this is a very tricky thing to do. But I think if I've seen any trace of it around the globe, it has actually only been in Europe where I've seen this has been developed. We have a lot still to do, but I think we really have to go for that in that direction. It's a long answer. It was a very complicated question. I don't know if you get more confused or if you even believe what I said, but I think it's extremely important to deal with these issues.
Thank you, Stefan. And the third question from Davide Marinali. Davide, can you hear us?
Yes, I am Davide Marinali, GG2 from Rome, Italy. My question is about especially Amazon. We all know that in this period during the pandemic, Amazon is becoming very strong, and its power in international trade also has become very powerful. And my question is this like monopoly of Amazon or Alibaba is affecting negatively the European trade and the Italian trade, or instead is giving an help? And also after this pandemic, since Amazon is becoming very powerful, and I think after the pandemic it will be more powerful than now, it will help the European Italian export, or it will be a problem for the Italian and European export? This is my question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Davide. Roberta, can you hear us?
Yes.
Could
Yes. I think that this kind of monopoly will not be good for the small and micro companies, enterprises, especially the ones who deal with made in Italy product. Because when you have products in the in internet, like you can, if you can deal with Amazon, is a product that is a commercial product. But most of our made in Italy product, they are referred to niche of a market. It's not for commercial use. What I mean is that most of our made in Italy products have some that you cannot sell in through companies like Amazon. Of course, during pandemic, all of us, we bought something from Amazon, from other companies like that. But I don't think I don't think the future of the Italian made in Italy companies will not through this kind of market. We need, as I said before, we need to restart kind of relation, kind of international trade relation that could be also physically. Because when we show our, for example, Italian product like food, like clothes, or something referring to the design, we don't sell only the product. We sell a concept. We sell a way of life. We sell something that is in our culture. And not all of this sensation you can sell through online market. You need to have human relation.
Go ahead. The other question from Perside Tuishime. Can you hear Tuishime?
Thank you very much. I am Sid. I'm GG2 from Global Governance, and I'm from Rwanda. So my question is more about an economic issue, because the International Monetary Fund recently announced that the global economy might shrink by 3%. So we're talking about digitalizing enterprises, and in my thoughts, I don't see how this is going to solve the problem of unemployment rates. For example, in different countries now, the US went from 3.7 to 10.4% in unemployment rates, and even here in Italy, it went from 10% to 12.7%. So I was asking myself how digitalizing enterprises will solve, for example, this problem of unemployment rates. Yeah, because when we digitalize things, we instead see more machines working more than you can see people in the industries. Thank you.
Maybe yes. Can you hear me? Maybe Roberta, do you want to answer?
Yes. Actually, the unemployed is really a big problem, and all of us, we tried. I'm speaking about the point of view of enterprises. All of us are involved in save the possibility to everyone to give the possibility to everyone to keep his work. It's not easy. And the aim of the instruments that the Italian government and Europe put at the base of the help to the companies, it's honestly is to support companies and to save a place of work. So to save works. It's not easy because the international trade, the international demand is going down. And a lot of companies now, they don't have works, even in Italy, because the last works, the last order we have at the beginning of the year now is ending. So we are finishing the order and we don't have the new ones. And I think it's strictly linked to this fact. But of course, we have handcraft companies. We cannot imagine a future without people who works with us. We cannot imagine a future with companies. So our aim, the common aim we have with the institution is to keep and to increase the possibility to give work to everybody.
I don't see any question, so I would like maybe the webinar is going to finish, and I would like to thank all the panelists, all the participants, and the organizer. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you again in this festival, Diplomacy Festival.